have an exciting panel right now. This panel is called Our Unique Perspective, Patients Living with Metastatic Breast Cancer. So we're bringing back Kelly Grosklags. She is the licensed clinical social worker with private psychotherapy practice in Minneapolis. She's our moderator again. And then as panelists, we have Tricia Irene. She is a mother, entrepreneur, and metastatic breast cancer thriver, diagnosed in April of 2019. And we have Shanette Caywood. She's a working mom of 2 boys, an 8-year metastatic breast cancer thriver, determined to raise awareness of the disproportionate impact of cancer in the Black community. We have Dr. Ramona Burress. She is a clinical pharmacist at Walgreens, mother of 3 teenagers, and a metastatic breast cancer survivor. And then we also have Robin Page. She's a wife, mother, founder of Core Life Physical Therapy and Wellness, and a 12-year metastatic breast cancer thriver. And she is an ambassador for Komen Chicago. She is involved in putting this event together. So welcome, ladies. Looking forward to hearing from you, and I will be back when you're done with your Q&A.
Thank you, Carla. Hi, everybody. Robin, I can't believe I get to see you. We've been chatting, and so sorry that Bernadette couldn't join us, but I'm so glad that you were able to step in, and that just means everything. I know you've been working so hard behind the scenes. I want to again thank Chicago Komen, and as I said on my last talk, that I wish we were together. There's so much camaraderie and support that we can feel when we're together, but I hope that you get a sense through this of support. I've already got questions coming in, but let's go down and introduce ourselves. Who we are, how long have you been living with metastatic breast cancer? And I also think it would be really great to hear, why did you volunteer for this panel? Or maybe you didn't volunteer. Maybe you just got put on this panel, but why is it important? There's many, and in the last talk, I know that there's newly diagnosed people with metastatic breast cancer, and they're coming here just hoping to find something within this that will give them hope. And so I'm curious, and is it Shanette or Shanette?
Shanette.
Shanette, would you mind starting introducing yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the conference. I am Shanette Caywood. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I am 41. I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in October of 2012. So almost 8 years ago. And as I said, it was de novo, stage 4 from the beginning. The cancer had already spread to my liver and to my spine. And what made me want to share my story is I want to give people hope, because a lot of times when you hear stage 4, you just think, oh my God, you freak out and you just think it's the end of beyond everything. And I was like that in the beginning, but my fight taught me that it was the beginning of so much for me. It was the beginning of inspiring people. It was the beginning of giving hope. And it was the beginning of showing people you can live through a stage 4 diagnosis.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. And I love that you just said you also felt very scared at the beginning, because I think sometimes when people look at people that have been living with metastatic disease for 8 years, metastatic breast cancer, they think, oh, I'll never be that hopeful, or I'll never be that whatever, fill in the blank. And so thank you for also sharing the vulnerability that this has been a walk, hasn't it? It's been a process to get to this, and I'm sure it ebbs and flows.
It has, and it just flows. You're gonna have your good days, you're gonna have your bad days, but you just have to remember to push through. I struggle because stage 4, you're gonna struggle, but just remember to always get back up, be resilient, which is one of my favorite words now, the title of the conference, and just push through.
Yeah. Yes, beautiful. Dr. Ramona, hello.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? You work for Walgreens.
No, not anymore. Actually, I should have updated that. So I actually work for Johnson & Johnson. I am a medical scientist, and my recent job responsibility includes COVID vaccine and research.
Oh my, so you're not doing anything with your days.
No, so excuse me for multitasking. My twin Shanette, sorry, I had to look down and send somebody a text message right quick because my phone was blowing up. But I'm 41 like you, Shanette, so welcome to the club, yay. But let's see, I was initially diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer in December 2013. Was actually going through a divorce when I got diagnosed. Was dealing with quite a lot of, life changes at that point. Had a double mastectomy, went through chemo, was supposedly cured or what have you, cancer free. But then by July 2015, I found out that the cancer had returned and it had metastasized to different parts of my body, different bone areas of my body. I think at the first time when I was diagnosed, I was 34, so just having to adapt to this new diagnosis and this new lifestyle. And, once you become metastatic, kind of Shanette, what you're saying is like, people don't overtly see you being as sick, but you know that you have active cancer and you deal with the struggles. I tell friends, like, if I have drawn my eyebrows on for today, that means I'm having a good day. Like that's the predictor of how Ramona's feeling. But really, I'm part of the panel because I'm a healthcare provider, pharmacist by trade. So I've historically worked in infectious disease and I've been the advocate for the patient. But the minute that I became the patient, it changed, right? So even sometimes when I'm in appointments with my physicians and we're talking about next steps and things, the scientific part of me goes out the window and that patient part shows up. So it's very important that we all have teams. So whether it's family support, girlfriend support, a support group support, that we reach out, because it's really a lot to battle. As Shanette said, again, the fatigue, just the constant day to day. And, every day that I wake up, I'm thankful. I say a prayer. And I truly want to leave this earth on empty with my gas tank on E, which is why I do panels such as this to just educate women that it's not a death sentence. I've been living for, 5 years now with metastatic breast cancer. It's not an easy journey, but it's definitely something that's attainable and you can still move on with your life. So
yeah,
thank you for having me on the panel.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Tricia.
Hi. Or good afternoon, I guess. My name is Tricia Irene. I am from Chicago. I'm in the 41-year-old club too.
Wow.
I was diagnosed in April of 2019 with de novo metastatic breast cancer. I had metastasis to my hips, pelvis, and spine. I started treatment immediately with hormonal therapy and immunotherapy, just taking a pill every day. I have not had any surgeries, and I have not done any chemo or radiation, traditional infusion chemo or radiation. I take a chemo pill every day. I started taking my medication right away. I became NED with no evidence of active disease in July of last year in my first scan, and I was remained disease no evidence of active disease until April of this year, and now I'm going through a little bit of an uncertain time because there is another growth that is not reacting to my medication. So yesterday I had a biopsy on that spot and I speak to my surgeon on Monday. So I'm kind of still in the middle of all of this, where I've been through the initial shock. I've been through the cruise control with, being NED, and then now I'm kind of back in it again where I'm a little uptight and a little worried. So I volunteered for this role because one of the things that I have learned about myself is the power that I have in determining my day-to-day, my feelings, my emotions, my reactions. And I also have really learned to understand that people will react around me based on my reactions. And so I've worked really, really hard and done a lot of research, a lot of studying, a lot of self-help, a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling to really be able to process all of this and to help others process through it too. So that's kind of where I found my new role. I did quit working in June of last year. It just happened to be a good time to do so. I'm in some ways thankful that my kids have been out of school for the last 6 months. I've been able to spend every single day with them, which is the reason I quit working. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I talk about. So, but I volunteered for this because I feel like I can be really helpful.
And what a cool dress or shirt or whatever.
That's my shirt. Thank you. I thrifted it, so I'm super proud.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Kelly.
Oh, I'm so happy. Robin and I have been chatting just by, I found like we became friends through Messenger. And so when they told me that you were going to be on today, I was like, oh my gosh, not to be, I actually get to see your face.
Well, I'm so grateful you're here, and this is just wonderful. And I'm very appreciative. When I started doing this conference 3 years ago, so this will be our third one, our first conference was very small, and it was our desire to have palliative care involved.
Hi, everybody.
And just because it was a 3-hour conference, it didn't work. And so I'm so thrilled that everyone could see that panel today. So that was good.
I am too. How many registered for this one?
I believe somewhere between 500 to 600 people.
Oh, fabulous.
And so for me, getting involved, my story is I was diagnosed in 2008 when I was younger than 41. I was 39. Now I'm older than 41.
Yeah,
so it was 12 years ago. So you could add that if you want, but I don't need to say it out loud. And I too was diagnosed at stage 4. I had spread of disease to both of my lungs, and it was HER2 positive. And started on Herceptin and did that for 3 years, and then had no evidence of disease since 2009. So I decided to stop taking Herceptin, and I thought if I need to go back on it, if I have a recurrence, if I need something, I'm open to that. And I haven't had a recurrence since then. So holding my own.
Wow.
That's not to say sometimes I don't get scared. I do sometimes. If I have a headache that lasts for a day, I say to my husband, all right, time for a scan. And then it'll go away. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. Until the next little thing. But I have to say now, being diagnosed so long ago, and my kids were 7 and 10 at the time, that now I'm not as driven by fear anymore. I don't think about breast cancer when I wake up. I don't think about breast cancer when I go to bed. It really kind of comes when I'm like, all right, is something going on? And that's right. My head will go there first.
Yes.
So other than that, I work as a physical therapist and in the healthcare field. And so when I myself was diagnosed, I was like, all right, I was angry. And then I started learning and reading and said to myself, okay, how could I give back? So being part of Komen has been my way of bringing these wonderful, knowledgeable people willing to share, all the researchers together to give people a sense of hope, that there is life, that there are choices to be made that could support your life.
Absolutely. And every time there's a panel, when I speak at conferences, I hear people say, again, as we were saying earlier, oh, I wish I was doing that well. I wish I looked that good. I wish and I think that's one of the things I hear a lot from my patients is about with metastatic breast cancer, you can look a certain way and inside feel very scared or sick or whatever it may be. And like Dr. Ramona said, she put her eyebrows on today and somebody might be fooled by that, but also like, oh, look how beautiful she is. And that's what this unique perspective is, because when I speak to metastatic pancreatic cancer patients, for instance, there's often a look, they don't feel as good, and they don't often, especially at end stage, they don't look as good. And that's the unique part about metastatic breast cancer, is that you can't necessarily pick somebody walking down the street that has that, but that's the good and the challenge with it, because sometimes people suffer so silently, and we just need to make sure that we're really tuning in. All of you have just like brought me hope right now at this moment, because even Tricia, when you were saying that kind of in cruise control, and now having a recurrence, it's like you're getting your knowledge, you've been here before, and you'll get through it again. And I think that's the thing that I want women and men to hear, is that people might look really good on this panel and look like there aren't any struggles, but they're here right now. And that's where we all have to kind of live, is right in the now. We've got questions coming in. I've got private questions that I'm going to start with. Does anyone know of a great natural hairstylist in the Chicago area? I'm on Ibrance and Letrozole and have started experiencing thinning at my temples. I normally twist and braid my own hair, make my own products, but would love to know if anyone has a stylist on hand.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not one that I can answer. How about you ladies?
And I'm not in Chicago.
Okay.
I'm in Chicago, and that was one of the questions that I had too. I've being on my medications, they say hair loss is one of the, and that's something that I struggled with. I've always had a very full head of hair, and people say all the time, "Oh, your hair looks great," but it took me like 2 hours to get it to look like this, and it's not a wash and go anymore, and it's a struggle. The texture is different, it lays different. It's, so I've been struggling myself. So I finally took the scissors and I cut a good 9 inches off of it myself. So I've been looking myself. So let me know.
Yeah, I can definitely check into my resources to answer that question for the young lady. But I myself, I do the Donald Trump comb over, and I keep my hair short because I do have bald patches. And so, hey, it's just swivel and swift and cover it up.
I do.
You look better than his hair, so I have to admit that you're true. Right.
I do wear scarves a lot. I do wear the chemo caps and the chemo scarves, and I found some really great resources for even with hair. I still wear the scarves because it just gives me a little bit more confidence sometimes. So if I'm happy to share those links as well if that's an option.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost my hair from the chemo, and then I had a little bit of alopecia as well. So I haven't had hair in years, but I actually love it. I've learned to own it. So I rock it and roll with it. And in the wintertime, I wrap my head a lot when it's cold outside. I have a wig to make me look like Beyonce when I want to look like Beyonce. But other than that, I just go with the flow.
Awesome. I love that. There's someone here that just wrote that they know of a product called Kaleidoscope, which is by Miracle Drops, or Kaleidoscope Miracle Drops. So that's one thing in the section there. Another question here is about mindfulness and quieting our fears. I think this would be a good one for all of us for all of you to address. How do you support being mindful and quieting your fears? And Robin, I'll ask you to start because you've walked this a long time, and you're at a point right now where, that must feel so liberating to not wake up and think about breast cancer the first thing, and to go to bed and not have it be the last thing, because that's most people's days who are living with metastatic disease. Can you talk a little bit about how you got to this point?
Sure. So when I was first diagnosed, I was pretty angry. I went through lots of stages. I was 39, my kids were young. I was like, I went to college, I'm a professional, why me? And after I said, okay, I'm not going to figure out why. I am where I am. I have to deal with where I am. So then I looked towards, all right, what can I do? And how do I take where I am and move forward from where I am in a healthy manner? And so I started reading a lot of resources. And I remember there was one time where I was working at a clinic, and 2 of the girls were diagnosed with breast cancer around me. One was stage 3, one was stage 2, and I was stage 4. And we went out to celebrate them being done with chemotherapy. And I sat at this restaurant with them, and I was like, all right, I'm happy to be here for them. I'm happy to be here for them. And I was almost in tears on the inside. I was like, because I'm never going to be done with treatment. And at that point, I didn't know where I was going to go. Like, I didn't know the path of my disease. And so I sat there, and one of my friends looked at me and she goes, are you okay? And I couldn't even talk because if I said a word, I would have cried. So I was like, all right, this is not about me. I can't address this right now. So I did what I did many times over the years is I took my thoughts and I put them in a box and I locked it up and I put chains around it and I threw it in the ocean and I let it go. And so there's some times where I would allow myself the time and the space. And then again, I don't do very well in that mindset. So I would be like, okay, I have to be done with this now. Okay, I've acknowledged it. I've acknowledged how I feel. I've acknowledged where I am. And now I have to let this go. And as the process of my disease went in a direction of stability, those fears over time became less.
Okay.
And I've seen many friends, because I've been pretty involved in the breast cancer world since then, and I've seen many friends go many different directions. So I have all of that information and knowledge inside of me too. And I've seen different friends make different choices. So then I know, okay, I still could make choices at every step. And that grounds me, knowing that it is myself and my husband and my kids, and I still have those ability to make choices. So it brings that fear level down for me.
Beautiful way to talk about it. Each of us has to get grounded in our own way, right? Each day. You know, as a therapist working in oncology, one of the things I often will talk to people about is if we're too anxious, we're living in the future. And if we're depressed, we're living in the past. And so I know this is cliche to talk about living in the now, but the now is really where we can get grounded. And I think that's one of the important things, you know, the whole scanxiety and Tricia thinking about her biopsy results. And of course, those are all natural, but in the now, right now, and to repeat, I'm safe and I'm loved. Sometimes we have to come back to that. Even this big scary thing that might happen next week, that right now is where we can do this. Because I think there's so much to think about, right? There's just so much to think about when you're living with metastatic breast cancer, from what I can tell from people. Besides metastatic breast cancer, you have a family, you have a hobby, you have a job, you have animals, you have hopes, and so there's all these things. And I think for the person asking about the mindfulness, that's what I would say, is try to work on the now, wherever that may be. Thank you for sharing that, Robin. Shanette, I want to ask you about that also. And can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on the word hope?
Hope is what carried me through. Hope is inspiration. I remember, you know, hearing stage 4 and just not knowing anything about cancer and just thinking like, oh my God, what is supposed to happen now? But I just remember thinking, okay, you know what? I'm going to take control. This cancer is not going to control me. I understand it's going to be a new normal, but I'm going to roll with the punches and I'm going to do what I need to do. I remember, you know, I learned to just keep myself busy and do things as normally as possible. I did not stop working until I had surgeries, and I actually took up running. I took up yoga, just took up a lot of activities to kind of keep my mind busy and not allow my mind to think about cancer all the time. So for me, it was about taking control and just finding things, whereas I wouldn't be thinking about cancer all the time, taking control and finding things that made me happy, joining support groups, becoming a mentor, being on, you know, certain boards and taking trips and learning how to live life, because I feel like before cancer, I wasn't really living, but now I'm just kind of living through the whole cancer experience versus allowing to take control and allowing to think, oh, well, because you have cancer, you can't do this and you can't do that. Why can't I still do those things?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, sometimes simple is more profound,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I think
I agree.
That's the unique perspective. Is I've been taught, and I've like really learned to appreciate nature. And you taking up running, like some people are thinking, oh my gosh, you know, that sounds a little just extreme.
Or you can walk.
Or you can walk, exactly.
Power walk.
But the movement piece, right? I think when people are feeling anxious, if you can move, even going to the mailbox and back for some people is a lot, but just trying to get that movement in. And I love that hope is what you said carried you through. People can have a very interesting relationship with hope. People can be scared to get hopeful. And I think of hope as kind of a mental break from negativity and fear for a little while. And maybe somebody that you love and trust can hold the hope for you. But I'm so glad that that was something that helped you through. How about you, Dr. Ramona? Would you talk a little bit about, you know, the ability when fears come, how do you work with that?
Yeah, I think I may be the worst case scenario. So my experience has been very cyclic, right? I love how you said live in the now, right? Because I've lived in the past, I've been anxious about the future. And
By
so
the
what that,
way, so do
uh-huh.
I. So, I mean, it sounds really good clinically coming out of my mouth.
No, but it's so true. No
It
truer
is so
words.
true.
Yes. So what I found myself, there were times where, I was relying too much on Kettle One vodka. And there were times too much where I was swiping too much on Tinder, trying to show off these new boobs that I had. So I kind of went through different cycles of trying to get comfortable in this space. And like Shanette just said, physical activity, that was key, and like the nature access that you said. So I walk the lakefront of Chicago. I
Oh,
go to the gym every day, but I realize how just centering myself, even just getting up every day and having that routine of working out, it reduces my fatigue throughout the day. It makes me cognitively clear without having to need Adderall, like the pluses. But, I guess my honesty is there are stages, and you have to allow yourself to feel the emotions that you feel and validate them, but know how to recenter yourself. So like this past week I've been having a stressful issues with COVID stuff going on. So I've been using a YouTube app that is a meditation music to help me sleep at night, right? Or to help me with positive visualization, just something to get me out of my negative Nancy mindset that I was in because of COVID. Like COVID has just unearthed so many disparities, that just
yes.
hurt me in my heart. So again, it's been like this for me, but I've learned how to, okay, I have this short stint of too much Kettle One. Now, how do I get back to just being regular Ramona, without any problems? So, yeah, just, being honest about this is a difficult journey, but
Exactly.
yeah.
And we have a recommendation from the audience that you should use Kettle One in a chocolate martini.
Been there, done that.
So this is what's helpful, right? Is people come with lots of ideas. So that's so great. But thank you for that honesty. Vulnerability is something that helps us heal, actually. I mean, and we're all trying to look put together, right? We're all trying to look like, and so thank you for saying that. I mean, because you're not the only one that has turned to something outside of themselves to find comfort. And so thank you so much. And I think, especially when people look at, you're a scientist and you have all this knowledge, and by the way, human, right?
Still human, yes.
Tricia, how about you with fears and mindfulness, and how do you work with that?
Dr. Ramona, I completely respect you for your honesty and transparency. I think that's one of the things that I find is most helpful for others as well as for myself. So when it comes to mindfulness and living in the now and overcoming those things, I do find ways outside of myself to kind of help process. And if it's vodka, it's vodka. I live in Chicago and Illinois, so marijuana is legal. So if I have trouble sleeping at night, I may turn to a CBD THC cocktail. It may be a glass of wine. It may be shopping on Amazon. It may be playing with my kids. Or there's a myriad of things that help. And I think it's important to do what makes you happy. And one of the things that I talk about the most when I talk to people is finding joy. And sometimes it's really hard to remember that even in the midst of this great adversity, and this applies to all walks of life, not just cancer, but it's important to find joy, because when you are able to find joy, it gives you a whole new sense of purpose. And one of the easiest, because don't get me wrong, you can still be extremely sad, but have joy. Right? So there's difference between happiness and joy. So understanding that first and foremost, and joy is a state of being. So practicing and working on finding joy. And for me, the first and foremost way to find joy is through gratitude. I heard someone say before, and I use this, I've stolen it and I've kind of coined it as my quote, but her name is Stephanie Seban. She's a metastatic breast cancer thriver. I met her on Instagram. She says gratitude is a joy magnet. So if you find yourself needing something joy, to find joy, gratitude is where to start. Find things that you're grateful for. I'm grateful that I am able to spend every day with my kids. I'm grateful that I have had opportunities to speak with the Susan G. Komen Foundation. That's not something I ever would have had before. I'm grateful. And these things, as you start to journal these things will come, and you'll find that joy, and it gives you a whole new perspective, and it gives you a whole new purpose.
That's so beautiful. And I have a woman that I worked with. Judy has now died. It'll be a year actually tomorrow. Metastatic breast cancer. But Judy was 57, and one of her things was about a blade of grass, it was called. And she had this beautiful way. Some of you may know Judy because she's pretty involved with lots of organizations, but she talked about laying in the mud as a metaphor for one of her worst days with the disease. And often people will say their physical days aren't necessarily as bad as their mental days, because the mental health days are just horrid. You can't go out in the world and talk about that as easily as maybe neuropathy or nausea. And yes, those are bad. But she said she's laying in the mud on her worst metastatic breast cancer day, and she looks to the left, and it makes me very emotional. I talk about it. And she sees a blade of grass, just a green blade of grass, and it's blowing in the wind. And she said, have you ever stopped, Kelly, to look at a blade of grass? And I'm like, no. And she said, well, when you're laying in the mud and everything around you is disgusting and you can see green grass, she said that was a perspective changer for me, because in that moment I had gratitude, just in that moment. And so she wrote about it in the book that I wrote, and it's titled Blade of Grass. And it's one of those things that I carry with me always. It's like life it can be really, really hard, and not either or, right? And yep. What is your blade of grass? Like, what is it? Is it laughing with a friend? Is it, and again, falling down in the mud. Like she said, she was at her lowest. So I think that is just, I think that's incredible. Do you guys want to add anything to that question about fears? Anything else come up? I mean, I think the one thing I want people to hear about is it's okay to be scared. I don't think, there's all this talk out there about your thoughts cause your blah, blah, blah. The things I really want to tell people is go ahead and eat the sugar. I'm sorry for the scientists on here, but if people want to eat a damn Snicker bar, I don't think that's going to do anything. And really let your true feelings come to the surface. Like if you're scared or if you're mad, it's okay. Like that, why wouldn't you be? You're shaking your head, Ramona. What do you think?
Yeah, because as a parent, I think onus on us to be vulnerable to our kids, because that's truly our legacy when we're no longer on this earth. So, I share the highs and lows with them. Now, they don't see all the Kettle One all the time, but, just I'm not having a good day, just honesty and transparency that comes with, I don't want to shuttle you across the city to go to your game, like call your dad, those type of things, but to celebrate and to laugh in the moment. So like, for instance, if there's a sink full of dishes, I'm like, well, I have cancer. I shouldn't have a house with a sink full of dishes. And we laugh, right? And it's not funny, but we add humor to the mix. So just, that's something that I really want to instill in my kids. It's like, this is not an easy journey, but I'm a fighter. And this is the legacy that I want to leave behind with you guys.
That is so beautiful. Robin, will you talk a little bit about, people are really loving your transparency, you guys. And Tricia, they said such a wonderful reminder about gratitude. I'll never say that cancer is a gift, but there are gifts that are unintended that sometimes come with it. Friendship, sense of community, with those who share a diagnosis, opportunities to encourage. Those are gifts that I wouldn't have had without this diagnosis. Yeah. And so
I think,
will you talk about that a little bit, Tricia, just about, because, that is kind of a rub, right? When people say, oh, it's a gift. And I do think it's an opportunity. I
was just getting ready to say that. I don't ever call cancer a gift, but I do. I hate cancer. I hate cancer. I hate cancer. However, my perspective with this diagnosis has led me to opportunities that I've never would have experienced before, friendships I've never would have experienced before, even a mindset shift. I've a never been married parent. So, and my oldest is 21 and my youngest is 6. So I've got four. I've got them all in between. So I get what you're saying, Dr. Ramona, that it's some days, man, and there are days where I can't, like my kids just know, just mom's in her room, just leave mom in her room because we're not going in mom's room. And those are okay. And it's okay. It's everything is okay. Like everything is okay. I was laying on the biopsy table yesterday, and when I heard the click from the biopsy, it triggered and I lost it and I started crying, and then things started snowballing, and before I know it, I'm laying in the mud on the biopsy table. It's so normal. And if you take a breath and you're like, Tricia, you're normal. You're absolutely normal. And it gives you a different perspective. And I just think that, opportunity is a big word when it comes to this cancer. But I will say that it's only what you make it. So if you find yourself stuck in the mud, you have to find a way to pull yourself out, or you will stay stuck in the mud. And I think that's important too.
I think that's so beautiful. And, we could do a whole seminar on PTSD and
Yes.
post-traumatic stress disorder with cancer. It's a very real thing. It does not apply just to people who have been in car accidents and at the war. And so sounds are very profound with trauma. And so that sound triggered you. And I'm glad that you were able to kind of soothe yourself. I just want to note that there is Renisha Campbell who wanted to share some things with us. It looks like the Komen team is having a hard time getting her live on here to share. So Renisha, do you want to type in? You wanted to share with us some coping things that you thought people could benefit from. And I'll just kind of give you an opportunity to do that. We'll just keep talking and then come back to it if that's okay. If I see your name pop up on here, just let me say to the people that are in charge of the technology, I think you're amazing, because if I were, this would be a real nightmare. I'd need Kettle One in this coffee cup is all I'm going to say, because I could not deal with the technology of it. So whoever is working on it, thank you. Renisha, we're going to try to get you up here. Shanette, will you talk a little bit, there's not as many questions coming in, so I'm gonna make some up. Is that okay, Robin?
Sure.
Seeing as many. From a unique perspective, can you talk a little bit about how much you think about death versus living now? Would you talk about that just a little bit? Is that a big part of your worries in terms of the death and dying part?
It's not a big part of my worries. It used to be. Mm-hmm. I realized that a day we live is a day we die. And I'm more focused on my days that I'm living versus the days where I'm not living, because, in all honesty, with a cancer diagnosis, you can't really control it. So why think about it? And then I have a bad case of survivor's remorse, but that kind of pushes me through my days and makes me want to live for those people that weren't able to live. So that's how I think about it. Instead of thinking about the dying days, I celebrate my living days.
I just got chills when you said that, about how you're going to continue on living your best life and whatever, and doing things just like this in the honor of those people that aren't. For some reason, I just felt the need to ask you that. You have this sweet face that's like, come ask me a question, Kelly.
No, I'm glad you did, because I actually had an event the other day and my friends were like, what are you celebrating? They thought it was my birthday. And I told them, I'm just celebrating life. I understand COVID is going on, which has been very depressing. With the cancer diagnosis, you have to be very cautious. You can't get out and do the things that you want to do anymore. But it doesn't mean I have to always seclude myself and not still live. We have enough going on in the world. So I just want to celebrate and live when I can. I don't want to exclude myself all the time from everything just because. When I'm gone, I want people to remember she lived, she celebrated. So we're giving my flowers now. Like, let's celebrate, let's party this thing out now. Let's not wait till the end to call it a celebration of life. Let's do it now.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm just reading here. There's a couple private questions. Okay. How do you balance, Dr. Ramona, will you talk about how do you balance the physical and emotional fatigue while still working or living life as normally as possible? Was there anything you did or requested from your job that's helpful?
That's a great question, because actually when I was first diagnosed and when I had the recurrence, I was still with, I'll put them on blast, Walgreens, who has a visibility of, supporting the oncology community. But when it came to benefits perspective, they were not the best. And so I can remember going through my first bout of cancer, separating from my now ex-husband was a financial strain, but actually taking time off of work was a financial strain, and still have residual, effects and damage from that initial financial insult because I didn't have a benefits package in place. So I think it's important as women, we're not typically, as we're, going for jobs or accepting job offers, we don't really look at the benefits package. Take a look at the benefits package to see if there's short-term disability available or what the options are, because you just never know what's ahead of you. And again, in that time, I was a young 30-year-old, woman with trying to get a great career. I wasn't focused on that. And so it hurt me. And there's been, again, longitudinal hurt, but you just keep moving. It's all about peace of mind and centering yourself. So that's why I allow myself to have my off days or my off weeks or whatever, because I know I've learned how to recenter and rebalance myself. But it's truly been, the meditation piece, the removing negative entities. So whether it's people, whether it's events, whether it's things that I'm doing for my life, just to keep me in a positive spirit, and truly that physical activity, because when you're running, like Shanette said, you're releasing serotonin, and that's like a natural epinephrine, norepinephrine release that you can get without having to take a Zoloft or a Prozac pill, right? So just knowing, again, yourself and knowing what centers you, that's the best way I could say. But it varies, day to day, week to week, month to month. You have those triggers. When Shanette mentioned survivor's remorse, recently I had dinner with a girlfriend, and we were chronicling a couple of girlfriends who had gotten diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And then at the table, she said, "Oh, I forget that you have cancer because you're still alive." And she didn't mean anything. But what happened was I spent 3 days in the bed because I internalized that, and I felt like crap, because here I am. How dare I be alive when all these other young women, around the same age as me, they succumb to the disease. So all that to say, allow yourself to feel your emotions,
Yes.
respect your emotions. But like Tricia said earlier, just know how to put your bootstraps on and your big girl pants on and pull yourself out of those moments.
I can't believe our time went so fast. I'm being told there's only 2 minutes left.
Oh.
How do you buy more time on here? Robin, can I get another 15 minutes with these incredible people? Get donation to Komen, I don't know. I just think all of you, thank you. I didn't, again, darn it that we can't be together in person, but how about next year, Robin?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's get together next year. And I might go for a fast walk in your honor, Shanette. Like a fast walk.
You will enjoy it.
Running is my goal, but I'll go for a fast walk. And you guys truly, thank you. And Tricia will be sending light and lots of love on Monday as you meet with your doctor. And certainly all of you connect. And thank you for taking time out, Dr. Ramona, and for all you're doing for COVID. My gosh, let's find that vaccine, right? Let's get it. So thank you. And Robin, again, thank you for all your work setting this conference up. Robin is are you the chairperson?
Yeah, the volunteer chair. Yeah.
Well, we know what that means. So
do a lot of stuff. Actually, I love it. I love setting up the content. I love meeting everybody and just being able to share and again, make those choices. It's important. It matters. I always say, it wasn't my choice to get cancer, but it is my choice how to respond.
Yeah.
And I think that's always helpful to me.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, you picked the most beautiful panel, and I know I have to turn it back over to Carla. So thank you, everybody. And
thanks, ladies.
Lots of love.
Thank you, ladies. So awesome. I love the candor, because we just have to keep it real. Keep it real. Yes, that helps people. Keeping it real helps people. Thank you, guys. So